very majestic animal. So kind of some up close details. I use the 40 to 150 2.8 with this. I remember an example of how it's kind of hard to bring out that, like, he's got a little black spot around his eye. So I feel like I could have probably exposed that a little bit better. But what I was really capturing here was how this was in a camera store, and he would lay down and he would just put his paw as a little pillow. So it's just capturing that small little detail and noticing things about these wonderful creatures that we have in our lives. So should you use a flash? We kind of covered this on the other Jacques photo here. So we might, I don't know if you have anything to add to that, Troy, but
well, I do. Once you get through, you say what you want to say first.
Oh, okay, sure. I would say that a flash is great to use if you are going to be willing to, do some sort of off-camera flash. I wouldn't say that just a pop-up flash would be perfect to use. What was I gonna say there? Oh, and a phone flash, I would never recommend a phone flash for pets unless it's just absolutely the only way you can get light. But yeah, I think you can be very, very creative with off-camera flash. So yeah, what would you like to add there, Troy?
Well, I was going to, double up on that there even. One of the things that I have enjoyed again about the Olympus camera that I've got and the Olympus flash that I've got is that, yeah, using that accessory flash in conjunction with the small pop-up flash to do wireless TTL really is pretty easy with Olympus. So a lot of the time, yeah, I will try and do that where I'll have my pop-up flash on my camera, using that just to trigger my off-camera flash, but not actually be in the exposure. It works out really well. It's really easy to do. Pretty much any company out there nowadays does offer wireless TTL, but what has impressed me about the Olympus stuff is that it is just really easy to do. So we've talked about with the pets too, that, they move quickly. It's hard to catch, a frozen moment sometimes. And if you are working with flash, that does make catching those moments a lot easier because you've just got that brief burst of the flash that's going to freeze your pet into the photo. So you don't need to worry quite so much about whether or not you've got a fast enough shutter speed because the flash is going to capture your pet in that situation. And two, by doing off-camera flash, again, you can shape the light more and therefore then hopefully with darker pets like Jacques here, reveal more of their texture and detail. That is hard to see without flash.
Very well said.
Thank you.
Yeah. All right. Let's move on. Pets in action. So this photo was not taken by me. I don't know who photographed it, and I apologize for that. I don't have a lot of pets in action photo examples personally because my dog loves to sleep. So yeah, but I will talk about it. I do have experience photographing things in action, so we can talk about that. So different, I put kind of a discussion topic here with Troy because we have differing opinions, and my list is longer just because I made this slide. So it's not that Troy doesn't have much to say here, it's that he didn't have the opportunity. So would you like me to go first or you to go first?
Yeah, no, you go first.
Okay, so my thought on pets in action initially was to shoot shutter priority, especially for somebody learning that's not comfortable shooting manual, because action happens really fast, so it's hard to think about three things to change all at once. So if you're shooting in shutter priority and you know whether you want to stop the action or blur the action, in a lot of cases you probably want to stop the action, then I know that I can stop the action at like 1/2000th of a second outside. Give or take some. I know that you can stop a bird's wings, freeze their wings in motion at 1/2000th, 1/2500th of a second. So I'm taking that philosophy and applying it to dogs because I know that my dog is not as fast as a falcon, you know? So, um, so just kind of relating those things, I would say to shoot on high or low burst mode. Low burst is going to give you that continuous autofocus, and then pro capture, which is something that we haven't talked about yet. But pro capture is an option where it shoots 60 frames a second and it anticipates the action. It records the action before you actually have the chance to take the photo. So if you are pressing your shutter speed down halfway for autofocus and anticipating some action, our cameras are constantly buffering up to 35 frames ahead of time. And then once you press the button all the way down, it's going to bank those last 35 and then some after that. So like those things that you don't have reflexes fast enough to get like that precise moment of the dog catching a frisbee, then pro capture is great to use. 9-point autofocus group, or potentially just the all group, especially if it's a bigger scene shot, works very well. So yeah, those are my thoughts. And one of the reasons why I wanted to have this discussion is because there is no one, what do I want to say? I'm not saying like I'm right, you have to do it this way. There's many ways that you can do it, and so I think both perspectives are really good to have here. So what would you like to add to your list here?
Yeah, well, sure. Well, most of what Shelley said, I'm in complete agreement with. I do think using the 9-point group autofocus is a good method for working with the focus points. Being in continuous autofocus or autofocus tracking if the pet is in action, definitely so. Pro capture is really kind of neat. I'm not that experienced with it yet, but it is kind of insane technology and is remarkable. So if you do have a camera that offers you pro cap, definitely do try it out, but do practice with it multiple times before using it on something that's important to you, because it is a really cool technology, but you got to be ready for it because it does capture an incredible amount of pictures, and then it does take some time to write those pictures. So it's a very unique technology. I wouldn't use it carelessly. As far as exposure modes go, though, I usually work in aperture priority because I don't want to be locked into a specific shutter speed. So if I'm in aperture priority and I have my aperture open as wide as it can to f2.8, 1.8, 4, whatever's my lowest f-stop number, I'll shoot with my aperture set at that, knowing that as long as I'm letting in as much light as I possibly can, I will get the fastest shutter speed that I can in that situation. And that will make me happy. So I will always shoot with my aperture wide open, and I'll keep one eye on my shutter speed just to make certain that it is something that will be fast enough to probably stop the action. So I'm a big advocate for aperture priority, and then shooting wide open, or maybe 2 clicks down from it at most. That's what I got.
Cool, thank you. Yeah, I think it's good to have two perspectives. I think there are people that think when they're creating an image, some people think in terms of depth of field and light gathering, which is aperture, And I do think a lot in terms of aperture, but if I'm thinking about speed, then maybe I want to set that parameter. So people might think of them differently. One might speak to a person more than another. So that's why I like to have more perspectives.
Right, and that's why it's so important, like you said, there's not, the crazy thing about photography is that there is no one right way to do just about anything.
Right.
It's all about what works for you, and ultimately what helps you get the pictures that you want to make. That's all that matters.
Definitely. Yeah, that's the most important part, is getting the photos. So cool. We'll move on. Autofocus points or styles for action. I would say the all group works well for moving subjects, especially if the background is not totally messy with branches or bushes or stuff like that. Um, that works really great. And also like the 9-point cluster. And, you know, so let's say you're not using an Olympus camera right now and you still want to go shoot action shots. These types of autofocus points are, that's relayable into most other cameras too. So it's not just specific. These are just what our screens look like here. In Pro Capture, so a little bit more on this Pro Capture. This is the shot, the one that's shot in the middle is the kingfisher. I think that's the kingfisher bird.
Mm-hmm.
Looks like it. I don't know what kind, but you know, I'm learning my birds here. That's the shot, like the perfect shot right there, right? You can't possibly get that shot just by using single shot. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
maybe you could, but that's probably the only one you're ever going to get. So what this does is it will pre-buffer these frames and then take frames after so that you can scroll through and find the perfect shot. So even the shot after that is cool. Did that make sense? Did I explain that okay?
I think you did okay. Yeah, you know, it is. It is an interesting technology because it does even change the behavior inside the viewfinder. So at least that's been my experience. So it really does take some practice to get good at using Pro Capture. But I also don't think there's anything else out there that can do what Pro Capture does. So it is really cool. It definitely needs practice.
Yeah, it does need practice, and you definitely have to understand it. So you can set your own parameters. If you don't want to buffer 35 frames, you can move to 10, but you have to make sure that your camera is set to take cameras after those 10 also. Yeah, so, and it is full resolution. It is raw images. If you shoot in raw, I tend to shoot mostly in JPEG because that's how I like it. But yeah, it's not just shooting a movie. It's with lower resolution. It's full resolution here. Oop. Okay. I got ahead of myself. Pro Capture high, 60 frames a second. Pro Capture low, 18 frames a second. It pre-buffers up to 35 frames, depending on the model that you have. We released the EM5 Mark III last year, and we added Pro Capture in that, and that has a different limitation. I want to say 14 off the top of my head, but don't hold me to that, please. And 30 frames a second for that Pro Capture high.
Yeah. Now, remind me too, though, with Pro Capture, it is only single shot autofocus, correct? It doesn't do continuous autofocus in any mode, or does it?
Oh, but it does, yeah.
Okay.
On Pro Capture low, continuous autofocus works there.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
On high, same concept as the other, it'll focus on the first frame. So if something is moving left to right, then
okay.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
So framing, pets in action, depending on what kind of lens you're using, I would say wide angle, use rule of thirds. That's an easy composition technique to use. And zoom lens, rule of thirds, but fill up the frame. Just kind of depends on what you're going for. Like what do you want to convey in your image? Like I said, my dog is pretty lazy. He does love to play, so he loves to chase buzzy things flying around. Here he's eating the bird seed or the nuts out of the bird. I think there's raisins in the bird seed actually that they put there. And I caught him chewing in this very funny look, which cracked me up. So that's about as much action as I get. I should also say he's 8 years old, you know, so he's
you have to like justify his look.
Well, whatever. He's a funny little guy. So yeah.
I do have to go back to that one. Go back to that one again. When I did see this in your presentation, I do have to comment that my first thought was, what would Jax think of his mom sharing this picture with everybody?
He would be so mad. He'd be mad. Yeah, he's like, Mom. I shot this with the 300 f4, so
Okay.
so it's not unusable for action. It's just fill up the frame, you know.
Mhm.
I almost cut his tail off there,
Mhm.
but yeah. Just looks like he's cheesing real hard, doesn't he?
It totally does.
More action. This is, I would say, below eye level. So puppy dog running around as fast as can be. So some of the challenges here that I'm noticing that I didn't put earlier is she's got mostly all black fur, and some of the fur looks actually blue. So, you know, careful with white balance there. But
Mm.
kind of the rule of thirds there, you know, almost.
I just like the shallow depth of field there and the low angle of view. I like both of those points a lot.
Yeah. Yeah, they're kind of a creative, changing your perspective and angles really works a world on photographing pets.
Mhm.
So that's such a sweet little photo there. Those are miniature tennis balls too, just for size perspective. She was an itty bitty little girl there. Oh, here I've got just a photo of one of my friends, Richard. This is his puppy dog. I just liked how he framed. So there was light coming in from over here. You know that the puppy dog's moving fast, but he was able to capture it. Use the lines of everything in there.
Mhm.
More lines and a little bit of action there. So yawning. Yawning is an action. It looks like she's screaming, but definitely yawning.
You know, it does make me think though, since the dog here is in the shade, just in the shade, if we again if we do have a dark toned dog and we're trying to get detail in it, do you think is it better to be in direct sunlight or in shade, do you think? In your
To
experience.
get detail in their
In their
mm.
dark fur.
Oh, I would think in the direct sunlight would be better because you would have more reflection there. I
Okay.
mean, I think that you could make either one work. In the shade, you're not going to have as much reflection on dark fur, unless you're using a flash or off-camera flash. You know.
Okay.
Yeah.
I wasn't sure. Again,